And now I would like to introduce today's speaker. Dr. Ben Faber is a University of California Cooperative Extension Farm Advisor, specializing in soils and water, avocados, and other minor subtropical crops in Ventura and Santa Barbara counties. Today he will be speaking on avocado pests and their management in California. I'll now pass the virtual microphone to Ben. You can go ahead and share your screen, Ben.
Okay, well, thank you, Peter. Oh my goodness. I'm going to be talking about avocados, and it is an honor to talk about avocados because they are confusing as all get out. And if you listen to what I say, you may have to change your concept of what avocados are if you're from the Bay Area or Fallbrook or from Fresno or from India or from Israel, because the pests are so particular about the environment that they are in. And so right now I'm going to highlight the snail, the brown garden snail. This is going to be a poll question at the very end, so listen very carefully. Brown garden snail is, I'd only seen once before in an avocado orchard in San Luis Obispo, and it was an avocado orchard that for some reason they were irrigating twice a day with micro sprinklers, and it was wet as all get out, and there were snails throughout the tree. And, you know, I said, well, why are you doing this? And they said, oh, isn't that what all avocado growers do? I said, no, they don't do it that way. So that was about 20 years ago. And then we had all this rain last year, and there were snails everywhere. There were snails in the trees, in big trees and little trees. And in orchards that had a lot of mulch, you didn't find them, but in young orchards where there was no mulch, they were throughout the young trees. But basically in a wet year, snails were everywhere. So you'll find insects inside an avocado orchard at all times. That, you know, you'll find, you know, insects that you find anywhere else, June beetles and earwigs and whatnot. You'll also find things that are more specifically in avocados, like greenhouse thrips and long-tailed mealybug and brown mealybug and brown scale and stuff like that. And you don't often find them in apples. They are in apples occasionally. They are kind of resident in a lot of avocado orchards, but they're not really a problem. You know, I can guarantee you, if you nose around in an avocado tree, you'll find white or red-banded whitefly. You just have to look and you'll find it, but they're never a problem. And that's because they're under pretty good biological control. Most of the pests that we find in avocado moved up here from Mexico because the home of avocado is not just Mexico, but Central America. So Guatemala, Costa Rica, Panama, in that area. And a lot of the pests that have moved into avocados actually moved with people. And so people are the prime movers of pests into avocados, and probably many of the pests that we see in all plants. So one of the things that is characteristic of avocados is you rarely see anything that is dramatic with pests. You know, it is kind of a chronic background level. It's, you know, it's the tree is not doing well. The avocado lace bug is doing its damage, and but you don't see a dramatic effect unless something has just moved in. So when Perseamite first moved in 1995, boom, there was a lot of leaf drop. It was pretty darn amazing. But most of the catastrophic things that hit avocados. Avocados are really delicate animals. They don't like heat. They don't like frost. They will get diseases like Phytophthora and verticillium. They are so sensitive to water. Too little water, not enough water. And boy, the avocado it's like the canary in the coal mine. If something is wrong, the avocado is going to show it. Most other plants can weather through abiotic stresses, but an avocado can't, and it will show it, and it will show it dramatically. So I'd like people to keep that in mind. Most pests in avocado, you have some time to work with the problem and resolve it before you see very much impact on the tree. So the thing about avocados is that they're in pretty good biological control. And this is partly because avocados, for the most part, are grown in moderate environments. So they're grown in a coastal environment where there's time enough for biological control to kick in. So we've got, again, I can find scale, mealybug, and whitefly in any avocado orchard. But I'll also find lacewing larvae and six-spotted thrips and Franklino thrips and minute pirate bugs and black hunter thrips and hoverflies. By golly, hoverflies are phenomenal, both in the larval stage and the adult stage. They are hungry eaters. And so it's a mild environment. So when you move into the Central Valley, it's harder to develop biological control because of the extremes of cold and heat, which are also hard on pests as well. So when we get hot spell along the coast, Persea mite populations crash. So the environment does moderate what is a pest out here and what is in biological control. So caterpillars, we have omnivorous looper, orange tortrix, and morbia. Really, these are, yes, a pest. They can cause damage to fruit. When you go into the packing house, you'll always see fruit that has been damaged by the larval stage. They can affect young trees. Young trees are almost always more affected in some respects than older trees because a young tree's canopy doesn't create the environment for good biological control. A big tree creates a moderated environment, which is just perfect for biological control agents. So young trees, 1, 2, 3, even 4-year-old trees don't have the canopy to generate that moderating environment. So some caterpillar species can damage young fruit, and you'll see some downgrading, but oftentimes the biological control agents that you see, these also include bacteria and viruses, granuloviruses that go through when the caterpillar populations get big. There's a virus that goes through, and you see these limp bodies hanging from the trees. So one of the treatments for the larval stage is sprays of Bacillus thuringiensis. But again, rarely is orange tortrix or morbia get out of hand enough that you have to spray. We've only seen this happen when we've had to go through and when we were spraying for Persea mite with Danitol, and boom, or Persea mite, avocado thrips with Danitol, and boom, we got these outbreaks of all kinds of other pests. So usually the best thing is when you see a pest move in, it's kind of getting out of hand, you want to watch it and don't immediately reach for a spray gun. Cultural practices, keeping the tree healthy, pushing new flush, but making sure that there is some air circulation. Most of the caterpillars that affect avocado don't like light. They like the dark environment. And one of the things that happens with avocados is that they get big and they get crowded, and that's when you start seeing amorbia damage or omnivorous looper damage. So one of the things is, prune the trees, open the trees up, and you want to be doing that as a manager anyway. Avocados flower and fruit where there is light, and where there's no light, the trees keep growing bigger and bigger, and they start forming their flowers and fruit in the top of the trees. and it gets really impossible to pick the fruit. So you needed to keep the trees open and airy, and that reduces caterpillar damage and the environment that caterpillars like. And it turns out that in both Australia and New Zealand, nighttime pollination by moths has been documented. So if you're out there spraying the heck out of caterpillars, you may be actually killing the stage that is going to be pollinating the trees later on. So watch out for what you go out and spray for. Mealybugs. Yes, we have mealybugs. We've got the long-tailed mealybug here along the coast. We've got other mealybugs. There's sap feeders, and they can debilitate a tree. I've only seen one case really that got out of hand, and it really was the trees right along the margins of the orchard up against the hillsides, and they actually sprayed malathion for it. But they were only spraying a few trees. So that's the other thing about when you're intervening into an orchard with a pesticide, don't spray the whole orchard, just spray the areas that are infested. And again, mealybugs are under very good biological control in avocado orchards. We've got parasitic wasps. We've got predaceous fly larvae. Turns out flies, household flies, their larval stage is pretty aggressive at feeding, but the adult stage is also a pollinator of avocados. So household flies and hoverflies especially at different stages that are munching on pests as well as pollinating as well. In general, we don't spray for mealybug, but when it does get out of hand, spirotetramat, which is Movento, is a pretty good systemic pesticide. But usually you let natural enemies take their course, and they usually clean them out. Okay, scale. I highlight Latania scale. Latania scale was a problem back in the 1920s, to the point that people were spraying some pretty nasty materials for it. We have not seen an outbreak of Latania. We've not seen a pestiferous stage of Latania scale in my lifetime. And there are other armored scales. There is a brand new scale that has moved into San Diego, the fig wax scale. And that was just identified about a year ago. And whenever a new pest moves into not just avocados, but into a new crop, it can cause havoc. And it takes the biocontrol agents a while to figure out that, oh, that's a food source. So at this point, no extra sprays are being applied to control it. The fig wax scale actually goes to a lot of different plant species, so not just avocado. California red scale, that's a case in point. I have never, ever seen it in avocados along the coast. But I was in Porterville about 15 years ago in a Zutano orchard, and red scale was everywhere. And I don't know why. I just assume it was a Central Valley problem. But it was hammering these Zutano trees to the point where the grower was actually spraying malathion to control it. So, the pests that I discuss here are those that we've seen primarily in the avocado growing areas along the coast from basically San Diego up to Monterey. And there is more and more acreage of gem avocados being planted in the Central Valley. So Central Valley growers may see pests like red scale that we don't normally see here. And because of the different climatic conditions in the valley, biocontrol may not be as effective there as it is along the coast. Perseamite. Oh my goodness. This was a pest that came in to San Diego in '94 and then popped up in Ventura a year later, and we could see it spread along Highway 118 all through the orchards. It builds its population when it's kind of cool. It never really goes away along the coast. Inland, it does disappear. The heat just knocks it out. So I doubt if Perseamite would ever be a problem in the Central Valley. But in moderate environment along the coast, it can build significant populations. And back in '95, '96, '97, people were spraying it because of utter defoliation. So the idea that I presented initially that, you don't worry about pests causing catastrophic canopy failure. When a pest first moves in, it can cause major problems. It happened with avocado thrips as well. But in general, that's not the case. So avocado Perseamite feeds on the bottom side of the leaf to the point where it eventually drops. And so one of the cultural practices that deals with Perseamite is, keeping it adequately watered and fertilized so it can keep pushing new leaves. So it builds its population in the spring, and then you'll start seeing some defoliation later on in late summer, fall. And if you start, for example, a laceling release program early on, release before the population gets out of hand, the lacelings can keep it under control in an economic fashion. So we do have biocontrol agents you can release, the Gallindromus and Neoceolus predatory mites, lacelings. Chemicals that we use are abamectin and Envidor. You get a certain impact from abamectin. Problem with abamectin is we use it with avocado thrips as well. So you don't really want to pull the gun on Perseamite too soon because you don't want to build resistance in the thrips by using abamectin for control of both Perseamite and avocado thrips. And water. If you've got a small tree, you can go in there and spray with a hose or a backpack sprayer, and the water dissolves the webbing, and boy, that just opens it up. Once the webbing's gone, all manner of things will start feeding on it, and it's amazing what just simple water will do. I'm impressed. It works as a very good pesticide where you've got a small tree. So avocado thrips. This is one of these other, when it first moved in, this came from Mexico, and down in Mexico, they didn't know about it, or they said they didn't know about it. It wasn't listed as a pest. Avocado thrips moved into Ventura about 1997. I mean, it was just boom, we had Perseamite, and then boom, we had avocado thrips. And this pest control advisor, Charlie Gribble, said, I keep seeing the citrus thrips in the avocados. And I said it, well, it's just a wanderer that's coming over from the lemons. Don't worry about it. And then Phil Phillips, our entomologist here, said, oh, it's just citrus thrips. Don't worry about it. Well, we started worrying about it when we started seeing the populations get really big and seeing damage to the fruit, and sent it into an entomologist at Riverside from England, and then who'd gone on to Australia. And he said, oh, no, this is a brand new, this is Scirtothrips persea. This is a brand new pest. And so we went out and we started playing with different things like Sabadilla. Sabadilla was already registered as an organic pesticide. Yep, it worked pretty well. But again, it's one of these things that you need some heat for it to work well. And it's not because it's working on the Sabadilla so much. You have to have a hungry thrips to feed on it. And you have to have the thrips feeding on it within 3 to 4 days before the Sabadilla loses its potency. So it didn't work very well along the coast where thrips weren't very active, but it works pretty well from Santa Paula inland or Fallbrook inland. Anyway, so there are other thrips that you can see on the avocado tree, western flower thrips and citrus thrips and greenhouse thrips. Greenhouse thrips was a major problem back in the 70s that, where we had clusters of fruit, the greenhouse thrips would get in there and, it was in a greenhouse and they would be feeding away on the touching fruit. And so our recommendation for control is the release of predatory wasp for phobias, or to just go in and thin the clusters of fruit, and greenhouse thrips wouldn't be there. Anyway, avocado thrips like to feed off of young tissue, young leaves. They will switch to the flowers and the young fruit up to about a quarter inch to an inch and a half or so. And they will do damage to both leaves as well as fruit. And when avocado thrips moved in, they caused some significant defoliation, and they caused significant feeding damage to fruit to the point that they looked like potatoes. So Calavo was selling a selection of fruit called papas, which were thrips damaged fruit. Anyway, controls, we've got good control of thrips pretty much. There's a lot of organic growers that don't spray anything. The conventional growers are spraying Movento or Delegate, abamectin, or spinosad. Those are all good chemicals that work pretty well. But avocado thrips points out, another reminder that both Perseamite and avocado thrips, these are leaf-borne pests. So they came into California most likely from somewhere south of us in avocado growing areas. And it was people that were moving these around. So generally speaking, the pests that cause the most problem are brand new pests. So red-banded whitefly came in 82. Perseamite came into San Diego in 1990. It had to make its way up here. It showed up on Santa Cruz Island first before it showed up in Ventura County. And then that's because the wind blew these ballooning webs out to the island, and then gradually it showed up here, probably with friends bringing trees up to Ventura from San Diego. Avocado thrips showed up in 96 and spread from Ventura all the way down to San Diego pretty rapidly. Usually it takes 3 to 5 years for biocontrol to kick in. And avocados are really a kind of poster child for good biological control. So we've had some new things moving in. Diaprepes root weevil, these things don't move very easily. So again, people moving material around. And in this case, it's most likely yard waste or container plants that are infested. It's still down in Long Beach and parts of Orange County. Avocado lace bug showed up in San Diego about 6 years ago, kind of went dormant, and now it's popped up again, causing some defoliation. It really makes an unsightly plant. And it recently showed up 2 years ago in Carpinteria and then popped up in a variety of places. So it's kind of skipped stuff, trees in between San Diego and Carpinteria. Undoubtedly, it's going to fill in the rest of the places where avocado trees are found. Leaf miner, leaf roller. This Caloptilia showed up in San Diego. It feeds off of young tissue. Neohadata thrips is like a avocado thrips that likes a little cooler environments. It's kind of blew up and then it's kind of disappeared again. Avocado lacebug was found in Florida and the Caribbean 30, 40 years ago. And it was a problem in Florida. And then it showed up about 8 years ago down in San Diego. It's caused quite a furor. Here's my pal Gary Bender looking at a backyard tree. You see the feeding damage that it causes. It was pretty much confined to that little area in San Diego, and then showed up in Carpinteria 3 years ago. It's moving with leaves. Probably in Carpinteria, it was found at the bin drop, so it was, bins that were contaminated with leaves that had probably moved up from San Diego. There is biological control with the generalists like lacewings, the pyrethrins, danitol, contact sprays, oil sprays work. The imidacloprid works, it's a systemic. But really, if you see it, they don't move, they don't fly very far. So it's, again, really human beings that are moving it around. The Knee-high data thrips showed it up in a backyard tree in San Diego. Mark Hoddle was out there inspecting trees. He'd seen it down in Mexico when he was looking for biocontrol agents for skirter thrips, which is avocado thrips, and he found it at different elevations. High data thrips. Barongi was at 5,000 feet, and the skirter thrips was at lower elevations. So they differentiate according to environment. So you see fruit scarring and fruit drop and leaf damage, just as you do with the skirter thrips. We get good control with the generalist predators, as well as the chemicals, Movento, Delegate, spinosad, and abimectin. Diaprepes root weevil. This is a bad character. It's the adult stage, can fly quite a bit. It's the larval stage that feeds on roots. It really can totally destroy a root system. And it's moved around by primarily moving contaminated container plants. There's over 200 species of plants that it goes after, and it damages both roots and shoots. It's pretty much confined to an area around Los Angeles and some down in San Diego in a housing area. Controlled with the midacloprid, in the soil with the midacloprid and the predatory nematode Steinernema. Steinernema is kind of expensive, so it works pretty well in a backyard situation. I'm not sure how effective money-wise it works in an orchard. And the egg stage, you can control it with foliar oils. I said there's nothing really catastrophic unless it's a brand new pest. Well, down in Florida, there is a beetle that is causing damage, and from 6 months to total tree collapse is about 6 months. It's actually not the insect that causes this, but a fungal disease, a Raffaello, which is related to chestnut blight, and it's carried by one of many ambrosia beetles now. Red bay ambrosia beetle is the one that was first identified as coming into Savannah, Georgia, and then spreading down into Florida and affecting avocados. It just goes after members of the Lauraceae, which there are many different plant species in the forest in the southeast. It causes significant damage with it's the beetle spreading a fungus, and it's the fungus that kills the tree. And here's a map of how it has spread. This is from 2021 and shows how it's spread, and it's spreading down towards Mexico. And it's just going to take one person carrying some infested wood who's camping at a beach in Carpinteria or Morro Bay or somewhere in San Diego that can carry this pest into California, and will go straight into the avocado orchards. It's what's called a pest disease complex, where it's the beetle that carries the fungus. 98% of these beetles are decomposers. They carry a fungus that goes through a dead tree and causes the decomposition of dead trees. These beetles don't normally go after live trees, and they typically only go after stress trees, which we hopefully don't have, but we don't have any good control of these things. Once the beetle spends most of its lifetime in the tree, and so it's hard to get at it. It's mainly people that spread it. The adult beetle is easily killed by many insecticides, and we're seeking registration for propiconazole, which is a fungicide that needs to be injected into the tree for it to work. It is now registered. It's got federal registration in Florida for its use. So we're going to piggyback onto that to have it registered here in California. We do have invasive shothole borer. We first had it as polyphagous shothole borer, and then we found another species of beetle carrying a fungus, and they carry various Fusarium fungi. And so we lumped together the polyphagous shothole borer and the Kuroshio shothole borers. It's just the invasive shothole borer. And the study that had been funded primarily were initiated by the California Avocado Commission, because it was first found on avocados causing economic damage, but it goes to over 200 tree species. So it's been generally found that it is stress trees that are most affected, and the most affected avocado trees are water or salt stress trees. So here, is a reminder, healthy trees are much less affected by insects and disease than stress trees, water stress trees, and because we irrigate here with waters that have high salinity, it's salt stress, and so we don't manage our irrigation waters appropriately. It opens them up to many other pests. So, Persea mite is not really a problem in a healthy orchard today, but if it's a water-stressed orchard, yes, if it has avocado root rot, yes, it's going to be a problem. The invasive shothole borer is found along the coast. It's in Ventura. It popped up in Morro Bay, and it seems to have disappeared from that area. But it's the only other place it's found right now is in Israel. The decline of the trees is slow. It's trees that are water, heat, salt stressed are more affected. There's no really good control because, again, it's like the laurel wilt in Florida. It's the beetle is in the tree. It spends most of its lifetime in the tree, so it's not easily killed by insecticides. Nesting whitefly showed up about 5 years ago. It's generally in good biocontrol. Caloptilia, the leaf roller miner, it just goes after young tissue. So if you keep watch over the tree, I mean, it's really I've only seen it significantly affect young trees under 5 years of age, and imidacloprid will handle it. Movento will handle it. So we're looking at other pests out there. So we've had glassy wing sharpshooter. Glassy wing sharpshooter likes just about anything that's green. It feeds off of anything that has some sugar in it. Any happy tree is going to have sugar. Well, leaf scorch is a Xylella fastidiosa bacterial carrier, and Xylella fastidiosa is a bacteria that pierces disease in grapes. It causes olive leaf scorch in olives. It causes various scorches in a lot of other plants, but you need the specific Xylella to cause that damage. So there's a Xylella fastidiosa that's caused major havoc in the kiwi fruit industry in Italy. Well, we don't have that strain of bacteria that's in Italy now. But there is a strain of Xylella fastidiosa that causes leaf scorch in avocados down in Guatemala. And we do have glossy ring sharpshooters. So if somebody brings up infested plant material from Guatemala, boom, we are going to have a problem here. And this does cause leaf drop, canopy failure. Avocado triosa is in Mexico and Central America. This is a insect that causes not any disease, but it causes these malformations of the leaf. Mark Hoddle and others have spent a lot of time searching for biocontrol agents around the world. He's had a great career going to places where these pests originate, and then finding the biocontrol agent and bringing it back to California to help control the pest when it is here in this country, in this county. Avocado seed moth, Stenoma. Mark has spent a lot of time down in Mexico with his wife, identifying the biology of this moth. The larvae causes significant damage, and there's a lot of sprays that are applied to orchards in commercial orchards in Central America and Mexico to control this thing. There is an avocado manual from IPM, from UCNR publications. You can order it. It's still relatively cheap. It's got really good photographs, and I highly recommend it because I'm one of the authors, and I get tremendous royalties from it. Or you can go to UCIPM. This is a great resource. It is a great resource. It's used by people around the world, not just for avocados, but for citrus and potatoes and rice and wheat and so on. But you go to the agricultural pest section. And one of the neat things is that you can go to the year-round IPM program, and it goes through different phenological stages and what to look out for, what pests are going to be a problem, what disease are going to be a problem at different times of the year. And it really says, it's a shout out, watch out for this at this time of the year. And so in the springtime, it's saying, watch out for Perseamite. This is the time, if you're starting to see it, when you can release lacewings, you start getting a handle on it. So, and here's Perseamite. Here's the good description of what the disease or the damage looks like and what the pest looks like. And then you can scroll down and it shows you what are the materials that are used to control it. And I want to underline that if you're a homeowner and you've got a relatively small tree, if you can hose the underside of the leaves and dissolve that webbing, boy, you're not going to have any problem with Perseamite. But the trick is, wetting the underside of the leaf. And so you can go to the next page or link on that Perseamite, and it'll show you what to look for and what to distinguish. So here's an example of brown mite damage. Brown mite feeds on the top surface of the leaves. It feeds on leaves that are dusty. And here again, if you can keep the leaf free of dust with water, brown mite will not be a problem. Six-spotted mite, they do similar feeding damage as Perseamite. And my mother says, get enough sleep and drink enough water and you'll be all right. And here, go to UCIPM for more information. And I can't laud it highly enough. It's a great site. So with that, are there any questions?
Yes, Ben, there are several in the Q&A, but there was one that I wanted to read from the chat. And that was, in addition to lacewings, what are the most powerful biological control versus predatory thrips? And what are the most effective times to deploy them?
Okay, so I mentioned lacewing because they're easily purchased, they're inexpensive, and you can inundate an orchard relatively inexpensively. And so the avocado thrips, and if you're speaking specifically of thrips, it's feeding off of young tissue. So you've got the thrips on the new leaves in the springtime, and along the coast, you never ever know when the fruit set's going to happen. We've seen fruit set happen in January, February, March, April, May, June. Whenever it flowers, the tree is really opportunistic. It likes certain weather, but you're not going to get fruit set unless you get 48 hours of above 50 degrees. So yeah, you'll see flowers coming out, but you may not see fruit set occurring. So you really want to time a release of something like lacewings to when you have new tissue on the tree and it's starting to harden off, and you have a forecast of, okay, we're going to get nighttime temperatures that are above 50 degrees, and that's when the avocado thrips would move onto the new fruit. So it's, it always is, even with chemicals, and you can get in there pretty rapidly and make a treatment. It really is hard to time exactly when to do it, but it's when the leaves are hardening off, and the only tissue then that is available is the fruit. So it's, you have to order your lacewings or keep them in the refrigerator ready to release as soon as you see that happening.
Sorry about that. All right, now there is 14 questions. I don't think we will get through all of them, but just a few before 4 o'clock.
Okay.
For sulfur's need for a heat, is there a risk to using sulfur in higher temperatures? Could it become dangerous in high temperatures?
Yeah, it can cause damage. So you really don't want to be applying any pesticides if you have forecast temperatures of above 90 degrees. So yeah, they can cause some damage. Sulfur can cause damage at higher temperatures.
All right. The next question, any concern for chili thrips in avocados in California yet?
There was some concern about that. We had a lot of chilies grown here next to the avocados, and there was some confusion about them moving, but no, they do not feed on avocados. Avocado thrips are specific to avocados. You won't find them on chilies, and chili thrips don't go to avocados. Citrus thrips don't go to avocados. They're wayward flyers if you find them there.
Okay. Next one, do Persea mites attack other crops? I know they can affect some ornamentals, but was unsure if they infest other produce.
Yes, they'll go after apples and plums and peaches. I've seen them on eucalyptus. Persea mites are, they are just looking for a surface to feed off of. So they're not specific to avocados.
Okay. The next one, at what temperatures does avocado thrips start to die at? And for what kind of duration does the temperature need to last?
Good question. So avocado thrips they like a moderate environment. They don't like it really cold. They don't like it really hot. When it gets hot out in Fillmore, they disappear. Same thing in Ojai. Which is oftentimes when we're getting fruit set. So I don't know, somewhere in the 90 degrees, and if you've got a weekend like forecast right now, they're saying 100 degrees in Fillmore for the next 3 days. we're not going to see any Fusarium or thrips out there after that.
All right. The next question was specific, that somebody's brother found a lacebug in his backyard in Santa Ana. Should it be reported, or is that the current known range of lacebug?
Well, you know, lacebug is in San Diego. I'm pretty darn sure it would be moving into Orange County like Santa Ana. And, you know, the ag commissioner is the only person you would notify, but, you know, they're pretty darn on top of things. And I think that they would like to know to track it. But yeah, you can call them.
Okay.
I'd like to know. That's news to me.
Ben, do you think snails can spread both, I guess, Botryospharia?
Botryospharia. You don't need snails. Botryospharia is a fungus that is a decomposer. The spores are everywhere. So with snails, without snails, bot is everywhere. You're breathing spores right now, I'm sure. So the thing about avocados is a sign of a good, healthy orchard. There's a lot of mulch. And so if you got a lot of mulch, you got a lot of Botryospharia out there decomposing it. So you got a lot of spores. So snails are another issue altogether. Don't worry about them in Botryospharia. Think about watering correctly. That's why you have Botryospharia in your trees.
Okay. Are all avocado varieties impacted by all these pests, or some varieties are resistant to some pests?
Yes. So any of the Mexican varieties don't get Fusarium. So if you can smell licorice, that means it's going to be Fusarium resistant. So Zutano, bacon are resistant to Fusarium. Hass, gem, Flamhass, the new Luna, all of those have Guatemalan. They're prone to Fusarium. Pretty much the others, avocado thrips goes to all of them. You know, certainly June beetles goes to all of them. Yeah, most of the others are general to avocados.
Okay. I want to thank you, Ben, for presenting today, and thank you everybody for attending, and see you next month in the next webinar. Thank you, Ben.
Thank you. This was fun. Okay. Talk to you later.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Have a good afternoon. Bye-bye.